Hello, good people. David Taub here, and I want to talk to you today a bit about bending strings and string bending. It's one of the most expressive things that you can do with the guitar, and whether you're playing acoustic, electric, or whether you're playing rock or alternative or country or jazz or whatever it is, you want to get really good at string bending. And I'm going to go over some of the techniques that you're going to need to get started with so you're bending strings properly and you're hitting the proper pitches and you're not just bending anything, because you can't just bend strings indiscriminately, right? So we're going to talk a lot about that in this lesson and in future lesson modules, but this is something you really want to get down and practice and hone your craft at and refine your art, okay? So I'll just bend a little bit now. I'll put a jam track on, I'll just play. I'll just improvise over this, put on like a 6/8 blues jazz kind of thing and just play over it. And I'll put in a lot of bends, all right? And you can kind of hear what I'm talking about when I'm talking about expression, just so I can illustrate what we're doing here, okay? So, couple things on string bending before I get into actual technique. All right, the thing that I see a lot of players do is they don't have a target note in mind when they're bending. Remember, when you're bending strings, you're bending from a note and you're bending to another note, usually the next note in the scale or the note after that in the scale or whatever note you're trying to hit. So you have to have this target note. So you're here playing and you want to bend to this note here. All right? So what a lot of people do is they'll bend the note and they'll leave it flat. See, they won't reach it to their target note. They'll leave it flat, and that's going to sound out of tune. See, it won't match what's underneath it. So you got to be able to bend and hit that target note. Or some people probably will bend, some people bend, and when they bend, they'll overbend it, and they'll bend it up here sharp. They bend it too much. See? And again, that's going to sound off. And in many instances, bending sharp sounds even more grating, G-R-A-T-I-N-G, grating, than bending it flat. Both of them aren't going to sound as good as if you're bending in pitch. So bending in pitch is absolutely critical. And I've worked really, really hard on my playing over the years to really, really try and just hit the notes exactly on my bends. I'm going to teach you some of the things that I did that helped me to get good at this. Okay? Guys who bend strings really well, like guys who influenced me in my playing, guys like, of course, Jimi Hendrix, probably one of the greatest string benders ever, you know, the King Kong of string bends, so to speak. I heard somebody refer to him once like that. That kind of stuck with me. Or a guy like Stevie Ray Vaughan, or B.B. King, Clapton, Santana, all great string benders. Yngwie Malmsteen, guy has tremendous technique bending in pitch. And another, more like the southern kind of rock star, the Dickie Betts, the guy from the Allman Brothers, man, he could really bend strings nicely and in pitch. There's lots of guys out there who do it really, really well. And you want to identify with these guys that you're drawn to and pull things from them that you like and make them your own. So, let's do like a basic scale, like a minor pentatonic scale. And that's a scale I was using. When I was playing there, I was playing over that jam like I was using... what was I using? I was using D minor pentatonic, but I was throwing in some passing tones. I was using D Dorian. I was also using, when I went to the A chord, I used A Dorian. I used A arpeggio. I forget. I was kind of mixing it up a little bit, not doing too much because I just want to do a lot of bending. I was doing lots of different bends, half-step bends, whole-step bends, minor third bends. Okay, so here's a few basic things that I do when I bend strings. Let's just play like the A blues scale, right? A minor pentatonic and blues. All right, let's use that as our example, right? Now, when I bend strings, or bending strings, I try to bend with as many fingers as possible, okay? I'm not a big bend on one finger kind of guy. Occasionally I'll bend half steps with one finger, but I like bending with 3 or 4 fingers. Like if we're in A minor pentatonic and I'm on my pinky, I'm on the B string here, and I'm going to bend this G note up to the A, I'm going to bend that with I'm going to put all 4 fingers on the fretboard, 1 finger per fret, and push up. See, because I have a lot more strength with 4 fingers than if I was to do that with 2 or 1, right? A lot of guys don't use their pinky and they'll bend it like this. I like using my pinky, and I suggest to all my students to use it. Why would you eliminate 1/4 of your, this is your arsenal right here, your guitar arsenal on the fretboard is these 4 fingers. Why would you eliminate 1/4 of that by not using this finger? And if your pinky's weak, go to some of the modules in the intermediate section on finger exercises and isolation exercises, and you get that sucker up to speed, right? Up to strength, okay? So I try to stay in positions too with my bends. Like if I want to bend this note, which is the F sharp note, to the G, I'll bend it with my 3rd finger, but I'll use all 3 fingers down. And I'll do that. See, I hit it every time. See? What you want to do when you're bending notes is have your target note in mind. So when I'm bending that note, okay, I'm bending it up to the next note right here. I'm bending the F sharp to the G. So I know by ear and by feel what that feels like, that half step, 1 fret. And you want to check it. See, same note. See, I check it, there's my G. See, I can hit it every time because I have my bends dialed in really well. So what I suggest is let's start with some half step bends. Whole step bends where you're bending 2 frets, like when I bend that G to the A, that takes a little bit more strength. You got to bend the string a lot higher, a lot more of a bend to get it up 2 frets versus 1 fret. But you always want to have your target note in mind when you're bending, and you always want to try to bend in pitch. Try to hit that note, and when you're just practicing, test it. Okay, let's try another bend. Like here I'm on the high E string. I'm going to play this B note. I'm going to bend it to the C. I like that bend a lot. So I'm in minor pentatonic, but you could say, well, that note's not in the scale, that B note. It's not in minor pentatonic, but it is in the Dorian and Aeolian mode. That's the 2nd or the 9th, and that note will work for you most of the time if you're using minor pentatonic. So use it, throw it in there. That's a great note. I love the 9. Love that 9th note. This B note here in the key of, remember, we're playing in A minor, like if we're playing over some A minor chords or an A minor jam or whatever. We're playing A minor pentatonic. So if you want to practice that bend, 3 fingers. Don't try to bend it with just 1. I want you to use as many fingers as you can. And then you're using all 3. See how I got all 3 of them, 1 finger per fret. I'm going to bend that note. I'm going to bend this note to here, the B to the C. Now look how I do that. I put all 3 on my fingertips, okay, and all 3 pushing up together. See, I have so much more strength with 3 fingers than I would with 1 or with 2, okay, and that allows me too to stay in position. I could keep this 1 finger per fret. If I was to bend this note, the C up to the D, which is the next note in the scale, I would use 4 fingers. See, I like bending with 4 or 3 the best. I will do 1 finger bends, and I'll show you those in a minute too. But you want to get started, so just take like this minor pentatonic scale, right? And then okay, so let's practice that bend. So what you want to do is you want to bend this note, the B, to the C. So take it. See, you want to bend it. And you want to see how those notes match. Now if I leave it shy, see, I check it, it's flat. I'm not bending it enough. Or if I bend it too much, see, I'm bending it sharp. See, I got to dial in that exact, that pitch. See, there it is. So check it. After you bend it, it should be the same note. And that's how you get good at your bend. So the biggest thing with your bends, I think, with students is bend with as many fingers as you can. And again, look at that. I'm on my fingertips and I'm pushing down as I'm pushing up. The other thing you have to do when you're bending strings is you got to mute the other strings. Remember, you have to mute out all the notes that you're not playing. All the other notes get muted out. So when I'm bending, like when I'm bending this F sharp to that G, I am muting, with my first finger is muting the high E string, and all my other strings are muted up by my palm of my hand is placed right on the bridge. See,